into today's topic. Today, we're going to talk about the thing that has become kind of a buzzword, but needs to be addressed, and that is gaslighting. And this is a term that I have seen thrown around a bit. I heard it said a lot, and frankly, before I knew what it was, I thought people were just saying it too much. Everything was about gaslighting, and everything was manipulation, and frankly, I thought it was overused. But once I learned what it was, I learned the history behind it, I recognized just how pervasive it is, not only in abusive relationships, but in our culture. I realized that now is the time and we have to address it. So in today's episode, we're going to dive deep into what gaslighting is, the history behind it, where the word even came from, and how you can finally begin to break the cycle and find freedom. First and foremost, what is gaslighting anyway? The definition of gaslighting is to manipulate someone by psychological means into questioning their own sanity. This tactic is used to gain control over you. It is literally used to make you question whether or not the reality that you are seeing is the actual reality, making you question not only what's happening in front of you, but what's happening inside you. It makes you question your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions. Even your natural reactions are going to come into question. Things that are warranted come into question when you are gaslighted enough. The word gaslight originates from the 1938 stage play entitled Gaslight. The premise of this play turned movie is that an abusive husband is manipulating the environment around him so that way his wife ends up thinking that she's crazy. As one of his tactics, he gradually dims the gas lights, because that was the lighting that they used back then. So slowly but surely, he would dim the gas light a little bit more, and his wife would say, "Wow, it's really dark in here." And he would say, "No, it's not. What are you talking about?" This became so habitual that she began to question the reality she saw in front of her. She had no reason to doubt her husband, and so she just literally thought that she was going insane. This term has been used to describe this horrible manipulation tactic since about the 1960s, and soon it actually became a part of psychological literature. But I want to be very clear here. I'm going to step into examples of gaslighting, but I want to make sure it's understood that it's not only a physical thing. Yes, you can physically gaslight somebody by messing with the lights and telling them that nothing has changed, but it's also things like, "Oh my gosh, it's not like I hit you. Get over it. Dude, you're totally overreacting." Those are examples of gaslighting, which I'm going to get into a little bit deeper in a moment, but I just want to make sure you understand that it's not just physical. Some more examples of gaslighting. "You're crazy. Wait a minute, what are you talking about? I never did that. You must have got that bruise by walking into the wall or something. I think you need to go take your meds. Oh my gosh, why are you making this up? You know I never did that. Oh my God, you are so lucky I put up with you. Dear God, it's not like I hit you, just get over it." Those are all examples of gaslighting. And this is something that I recognize not only in abusive relationships, but I actually caught myself doing. As a parent, I have looked at my child and said, "Oh my gosh, it's not that bad, just get over it." What I didn't realize is not only was this done to me in past abusive relationships and also by my own parents who just didn't know better, but that this was basically telling my child that his feelings and his reaction were important and that he shouldn't feel those things, and that a natural response to pain and frustration shouldn't happen. So once I recognized what gaslighting was, I was able to stop the cycle within myself, and I was able to recognize when other people were doing it to me. Now, I don't say this to make any parents feel guilty, but I want you to understand how pervasive this manipulation is within our culture. Chances are you've been gaslighted, and you've probably also gaslit someone else. Again, this is not said to make you feel guilty, but I want you to become aware of what's happening around you, so that way you can begin to break the cycle and have it end with you, so we don't continue to pass it on to the next generation. With all that being said, I'm going to step back into the abusive manipulation tactic part of it. We're going to be discussing why this tactic works, why the abuser will use this, and how it changes our brain over time. First off, why does this work? Because when you think about it, you're looking around, and if you see the lights are dimming, you think logically you should go, no, I'm going to trust my instincts. I can tell that the lights are dimming, so I just know that my husband's lying. Well, the fact of the matter is that when you have built trust up in someone, you have no reason not to believe them. And when they're saying over and over and over again that the lights aren't dimming, your brain is going to begin to take that information and go, okay, if he's so adamant saying that the lights aren't changing, but I'm seeing that the lights are dimming, I must have a perception problem. My reality must be incorrect. What I'm seeing isn't true, so therefore I can't trust anything in front of me. The abuser uses this manipulation to break you down. Because if it reaches a point where you don't trust yourself, you don't trust reality, you don't believe that what's actually in front of you is in front of you, you have no choice but to rely on the abuser. You have no choice but to take their word for it. Because what they'll do is they push you and push you until you have to lean on them to translate reality for you. And just like in that gaslight play from the dimming the lights example earlier, she had no reason not to trust her husband. And she realized that the only consistency in her life was the fact that her husband was there and was adamant that the lights weren't changing. So she had no choice but to trust him and to lean on him. And that's why this works. This works because we have no reason, no logical reason in front of us not to trust them. We've been with them, we care about them, and for whatever reason, they've convinced us through gaslighting that they're doing us a favor. And so we should just take their word for it and trust them. And that's why in the beginning, the abuser generally comes off super sweet and kind, and they suck you in. And they do this in order to get you to trust them. So it's much easier to break you down and manipulate you and own you later on. Once you trust them, they will begin to manipulate you. Now, I want to be abundantly clear here. This does not mean you are broken. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that you are incapable of seeing the world around you. All it means is that your brain has been manipulated. So how do you catch it? If you're questioning your own reality, how do you catch when it's happening to you? That is the power of awareness. Once you understand what gaslighting is and you're able to recognize it, it becomes much easier to call it out. At first, your brain is going to resist this. Your brain has been manipulated, and so it doesn't want to believe that it's been manipulated. Your brain's going, no, I know I'm right. I know I'm right, and that I know I'm wrong. I know I'm right that reality isn't reality because I've created all of these connections to believe this way, and I don't want to change. Our brains are incredibly stubborn. And so once you plant this seed of awareness, though, the seed will begin to grow and it begins to wipe out all of those other beliefs that it has. Because once you add a piece of logic, it becomes easier and easier for your brain to break it down. So once you become comfortable with recognizing gaslighting, seeing what it is, and catching yourself when you do it to others, it's going to bring more and more awareness, which means that you're going to be able to break free from it and take a step back. And when this happens, it's like taking sunglasses off that you forgot you've been wearing. You know, when you've been wearing sunglasses for a really long time and you're like, everyone's saying how bright it is, but it's not all that bright. And you take your sunglasses off and you're like, oh, good God, I can't see. That's you going, oh my gosh, I forgot I had sunglasses on and now it's so much brighter. That is what happens when you begin to recognize gaslighting. You take off those glasses and all of a sudden you recognize it everywhere. And while that may seem overwhelming, what this means is that you are no longer going to be susceptible to that manipulation. And once all of that happens, you are priming your brain to get ready to heal and break the cycle altogether. Although I do want to make sure I put this disclaimer out here. Just because you call it out doesn't mean they're going to admit to doing it. For example, I was on and off with this dude for like a year. We decided to stay friends, even though we knew that we weren't going to work as a romantic couple. We had a really good, solid friendship. However, one night as we were talking on the phone, he told me that I told him I loved him. And I knew deep in my being that I did not say that. I knew I didn't say that. There's no way that I would have said that. And when I told him, he was more and more adamant. He became more and more distressed. And he was so convinced that I had told him that I loved him that part of me kind of began to believe it. So after that phone call, I immediately called my best friend and I told her about what was going on. And she was like, no, if you would have said you loved him, you would have told me that you loved him. Because me and my bestie, we tell each other everything. The amount of TMI in our conversations is insane. So if I was in love with someone, or if I told someone I loved them, I knew that I would have told her. But even after that conversation, I still didn't fully believe myself even when I knew that I never said that. So I thought, okay, maybe I never said that, but maybe I said something that he interpreted that way. So I brought it up again a few months later that the comment had actually made me uncomfortable because I'm pretty sure I never said that. And again, he just got extremely upset and he started tripping over his words. And all of a sudden, his backstory began to change into how I said it and how it came up. And I realized in that moment that whether or not he interpreted something to think it that way didn't matter. What mattered is that I knew that I never said that. I knew that I could trust myself. Even though I had to get validation from my friend, I knew that I could trust myself and that I didn't love him. But in that moment, I had to step back and go, okay, no. It doesn't matter what he thinks. It doesn't matter what he says. I know deep in my being that I never said I loved him. And it wasn't long after that that the friendship ended because these gaslighting patterns began to grow and grow. And I was like, okay, if he's going to try to manipulate me about this, what's going to happen in the future? And so I knew that it was time to end the friendship, and I hit that pretty little block button. I used to be so scared to use it, but now it has become my best friend. And honestly, that block button, let it become your best friend. There may not be times where it's safe to call it out. For example, if you're in a physically abusive relationship or in any place where you feel your safety is threatened, it may not be safe to say, hey, I never said that. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just walk away, hit the block button, do what you need to do, but get that person out of your life. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't have to do this big goodbye. That's what I was guilty of. I kept finding myself falling back in these situations, and I realized it's because I was allowing them to talk me back into staying. I was allowing them to walk back into my life because I never fully shut the door. I was like, no, I'm too scared. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to just leave without saying anything. But what I realized is that the most freedom I found was in that block button. No goodbye, no big to do. Why? Because I had to make the decision that I mattered. I had to put my mental health first. And once I did that, it was as if this 50-pound weight was just lifted off of my chest. So we know what gaslighting is. We've recognized it. We've got some examples. We can see how it could be done physically or manipulatively, psychologically. What now? We can call it out. We recognize it, but what then? How do you heal from it? So when you've been manipulated this way, it actually changes the way your brain functions. You begin to question not only what someone else says to you, but you begin to question everything. You question how you look in the mirror. You question your own thoughts and feelings. You begin to wonder if the way you're feeling is right or wrong because you've been told it was wrong so many times in the past. So first and foremost, you need to recognize that this is going to take time. It's going to take time to heal. It's going to take time to recover from this. So you have to first give yourself grace and recognize that this isn't an overnight change. The second thing you need to do after that is begin to tell yourself every day consistently that you're capable of recognizing reality, that you are capable of thinking thoughts, that you're capable of feeling feelings, and all of them are okay and all of them are correct. You have to begin to tell yourself and remind your brain that what you think, feel, say, do is valid. And what you feel is valid. And once you begin to tell your brain this over and over and over, what's going to happen is you are giving it momentum. So when you are faced with gaslighting, your brain's going to go, wait a second. I am capable of thinking my own thoughts, and I am capable of interpreting my reality correctly. And if what he said, she said, they said made me uncomfortable, I have every right to speak up about it. And I'll be completely honest, there are times that I still struggle with this. Just like in the time with my ex-friend who was convinced that I told him I loved him, I had to go to my best friend and say, hey, here's this situation. Can you please give me feedback on this? And she was able to go, no, I know for a fact you would have told me, and you never told me that you loved him. So I had to get that outside validation because my brain wasn't able to fully process or fully trust itself. Reaching for help is one of the best things that you can do in this situation. Because once you're able to get that outside validation, your brain goes, okay, I'm thinking that this is making me uncomfortable, and she's telling me that that I have every right to feel uncomfortable. So you know what? Maybe that situation, maybe my gut feeling was right. And the more you get that validation, the more you're going to begin to trust yourself. As you begin to trust yourself and trust your gut, you are going to find that it becomes immensely easier to fight back in these situations. You're going to find that it's immensely easier to go, okay, nope, and to keep your sanity. because you're going to know, no, the reality that I see is reality. No, I look up, he is pretty adamant that the sky is purple, but it's definitely blue. I know it's blue, and I'm not going to argue about that because I know that I am capable of recognizing the reality around me. And this is something that I see over and over and over again, either with clients, with followers, and people reach out. My DMs are full of women who have been gaslighted to the point that they don't even trust that their own 2 feet are going to follow on the right path. They don't trust that their feelings are correct. And it absolutely breaks my heart. Once you recognize what gaslighting is, you begin to get your power back. And once you get your power back, you're not going to allow yourself to step into these situations again. This journey is not easy. I wish it was. I wish there was something where I could say, oh, follow step 1, 2, and 3, and you'll be healed by next week, 6 months, next year. But the fact of the matter is that everyone's journey is different and everyone's brains are wired differently. So either it takes you 6 months or 5 years, your journey is valid and you are worth it. If you commit to your journey and if you commit to your recovery, you will break free from this cycle and you will be able to trust yourself again. I promise you that. And this is one of the many reasons why I am so incredibly obsessed with helping women see their worth. Because usually what happens, particularly with abusive relationships, is we have been manipulated to the point that we don't believe we're worth anything. We don't believe that we're worth standing up for. We don't believe that it's even worth our time to stand up for ourselves. But the fact of the matter is that you are. You are worth that. You are deserving of that freedom. You are deserving of being treated with respect. And that's why building your confidence, recognizing your self-worth is such a big deal to me. Because once you do that, once you get your sense of self-worth back, you don't allow anyone to gaslight you because you're like, no, I trust myself. I have complete confidence in myself and the reality that I see before me. So if this resonated with you and you are wanting to take the next step, you're like, Karleigh, okay, I'm ready. I want to take that next step. I want to break the cycle. I am all in. What's the next step? If that is you, grab my free 5-day confidence course. This course takes you through the exact framework that I give to my paying clients to work them through and build their sense of self-confidence. Building your sense of self-confidence is the very first step you need to take in order to move forward on this cycle. And a lot of the times people don't even know where to start. That's why I created this course. It literally gives you a step-by-step to build that sense of confidence, which is going to build that skill of confidence, which is going to give you your sense of self-worth back, which is going to help you in the battle against gaslighting. So if that's you and you want in, go to karleighlane.com/confidence, grab it. It's totally free, no strings attached. This course has changed over 70 lives already, and I know that it can help you too. So again, karleighlane.com/confidence. I will have the link in the description below as well. And again, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe because there is so much good stuff coming. All right, never forget, y'all, that you are strong, you are capable, you are intelligent, and you are so freaking worthy.